Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot. I am delighted that you have found me and are joining me. This is going to be one of my Canadian political readings. So yesterday, I released a video about Andrew Scheer. It was a request from a viewer named Charlene. And in that request, she also asked me to do, a bit of a deep dive on Trudeau. So I had that sort of scheduled for, next week. And in view of the whole blackface Aladdin situation, I thought it made more sense to do that reading now and get it released. So that's where we're at. That's what we're doing. So let's just see what we can see. I have a question. Come on down. Okay, so we'll give it a couple more quick shuffles. And we'll see what we see. All right, so deep dive on Justin Trudeau, deep dive on Justin Trudeau, deep dive on Justin Trudeau. Let's see what we can see. Okay, definitely in a bit of a defensive posture right now. Okay. So, it's definitely a bit of a rocky time for him. This sort of blindsided him a little bit. The pictures, as I understand it, were kept in like a secured vault. And I believe that was connected to the school where he taught, and it was, a rather elite school. So there is some question exactly about how did that stuff get out of the vault. So to be fair, I think it was something that he actually hadn't thought of in a long time and was a little bit caught off guard by it. So this has given him some indication that there are actually forces operating against him that really are almost going to do whatever it takes to win and get him out of office. And that, again, has that real USA Trump feel to it. And it's not going to do well in Canada because we don't want our politics to be like that. We don't like when our politics get that aggressive. And so people need to be careful that they don't end up creating a situation where instead of Justin Trudeau losing support, he actually gains support from people who feel as if this was, I want to almost use the word unnecessary, that it was not how we do things. He is very aware that the whole world is watching. He's been incredibly sincere, I think, in his apologies. And I think when we look back on this, we're going to see it more as a tempest in a teapot than anything else. Politicians around the world actually really like him. They like his style. They like that he is young and really progressive in his thinking, and they like that he represents Canada in a way that reflects well on Canada and, reflects by extension well on the allies who are part of coalitions that work together. There is a sense that there is a lot of upheaval in the world, especially given the U.S. Trump situation and the UK Boris Johnson situation. And there really is a sense that internationally and globally, leaders of other countries would like to see this sort of stay stable, because as things get ramped up with Johnson and Trump, you're going to see some more instability. And so the feeling is, let's not bring in a new horse, let's keep the person there who's already trained, who understands, who has all the background. So we're going to see, actually how that plays out for him. So let's carry on. Okay, so this is interesting. This is telling me a story about the fact that he is actually going to end up garnering more support as a result of this than losing support. It would appear that the momentum is going to be behind him, and probably really is as simple as this. A lot of Canadians are going to look at this as a really dirty trick, and we don't like dirty tricks in our politics. So there is definitely an awareness from Trudeau and his team that there is now a lot of work to do to sort of regain ground and almost regain a reputation. But they are going to be, and have been frankly, surprised by the amount of support that they are getting from, everyday Canadians saying what was done wasn't acceptable. Okay, so it's like this. So the blackface wasn't acceptable, but exposing it the way it was exposed when it was, considered sealed in a vault kind of thing, is also not cool. So you have kind of this double, one, he shouldn't have done it, and two, whoever they shouldn't have done it either. And so far what we have is somebody standing there saying it was wrong, I am embarrassed, I can't apologize enough, basically. And then you have this other group who actually leaked it. And if that information comes out, I think there's going to be a little bit of surprise in terms of where it came from. And I tell you why I say that is because since this has started, the only phrase that continues to roll around in my head consistently is hell hath no fury. So I'm not suggesting it is or isn't someone. I'm not even suggesting that it's a female someone. But it's interesting that that phrase is just what keeps going over and over in my head. Again, a recognition that there is work to do. There needs to be some serious repair work done here. But it ended up not being, like I say, as a black and white a situation. Oh, that was not a good choice of words. But, okay, it just didn't end up being a situation that was actually they wanted it to harm him. And in some ways, I'm seeing that, in fact, it's going to garner support for him. And people are going to say, this is, this is not how we want to be, represented. Sorry, it's fall. Not want to be represented. And we don't want this kind of behavior to become part of our politics. The Canada has never quite had that same sort of, it's like a visceral reaction in the United States over blackface. On some level, it was like, we acknowledge that it's not a good thing, and it's demeaning to black people everywhere, but there is a sense that that sort of is not as big a trigger here in Canada as it certainly would be in the United States. So there is sort of a sense that this was a little bit underhanded. He is very much aware of the fact that there needs to be some balance created, okay? He was able to get, things passed through that really, once they're passed, they're not going to get reversed. So abortion and gay marriage, those kinds of things, they're now baked in to Canadian elections, to the mentality of Canadians. And so we're not really anxious to see those things reversed. And in fact, Canada as a whole sort of feels like we're moving forward in a inclusive way. That is what we want to be known for. And any politician who stands very firmly behind an attitude that is not inclusive is going to have a much harder go of it. Because while there are always a segment of the population who are trying to get back to the way things were, and they don't like this change, by and large, they are older, and it's difficult for them to see the world they knew and understand be changing in front of them. But it is going to change in front of them because the energy going forward is young and vibrant and inclusive and thinking outside the box. And so there's really it's kind of a feeling of, if you're not with us, we don't want you representing the morals and the ideas of Canadians if actually yours are reversed to what the vast majority of us think. Having said that, Trudeau was aware of the fact that there needs to be a bit more balance of budgets, of sort of keeping some of those promises that he made that were not kept. But there is also, again, an understanding among Canadians that politicians promise things and then they do about half of them. And then the opposition yells and screams and get everybody riled up. And then so they get voted out because they couldn't fulfill their promises. The next government comes in. I think I said this in the last video too. The next government comes in and they make a bunch of promises and they don't get theirs fulfilled. And then the opposition, it's just a game that goes on. And so by and large, people actually feel that there were some things that were accomplished by Trudeau that were significant and that were important and that were a reflection of Canadian values. And I'm not saying that he is lily white, because he is not lily white. I mean, that whole situation with Jody Wilson-Raybould, I think is how you say her name, was not good. And it did not put him in a good light. And it has given people something to just rev up that hostile energy against him with. And he is mindful of that and he is aware of that. But again, on some level, it's almost as if the more Trumpian this becomes, the more Canadians will demand justice. We won't like a government that takes us backwards. Okay, so bottom line, the truth came out. It has put him in a defensive position and he is going to be able to sail into clear waters. This is not going to end up being some big, huge black mark against him. I think that in some way, the whole situation with the Aladdin face really boils down to, unless you just hate the man on principle, you can see he has a good heart. And so on some level, you just simply understand that it wasn't done as an intentional slight or insult or to demean anyone. Inappropriate? Absolutely. But again, some of this stuff is inappropriate by today's standards, maybe not so much 20 or 25 years ago standards. So, there is that to be taken into consideration. And, I remind people who get really hepped up on, well, if you did something 20 years ago and it doesn't conform to today's standards, you need to be, blackballed and rejected on all levels. Well, you know what? Let's just go back a little bit. When I was like 10 and 12 years old, it was perfectly acceptable to smoke in hospitals. It was perfectly acceptable for pregnant women to smoke. 20 years ago, attitudes were very different. 20 years ago, there weren't seatbelts in cars. So it's an evolution that we live, people. All of us on the planet are continually evolving forward. And you need to be mindful of the things you drag up from the past and try to plant into today's values. It doesn't translate so well, especially here in Canada, where there is just not that sort of ridiculous passion. You know, we're just more level-headed about stuff. Okay, so what we have here is there still exists a potential change of fortunes for Trudeau. There may be one or two more things that come out as a result of this leak. And honestly, I think at some point down the road, the leaker, where that information and how it was uncovered, is actually going to become public knowledge, and that's not going to look so good. But he's definitely kind of in a race. This situation has made the race a little harder for him right now. I'm not exactly convinced that it's going to be much harder for him 2 or 3 weeks down the road. So I'm going to use this almost just as a cautionary tale. Now, as I have, I think, said before, okay, so we have a lot of worry here, a lot of anxiety. Emotions are riled up, and everybody is like, angry or kind of confused and kind of like, I'm not understanding why, you're trying to turn this into such a horrible thing. And I hope that I'm not sort of coming across as if this was unimportant and shouldn't even be talked about. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that there's a little bit more balance in the way we are reacting to it as a country. And there again is this, things are moving and they're moving ahead fast. It's a very short election cycle. And so a lot is going to unfold in very rapid kind of succession. There is going to be, it's going to be a race, make no mistake. I don't see that. I think he's going to lose some ground. So it will be interesting to see. At this point, if I had to make a prediction, I would say that Trudeau is likely to get in with a minority government. He's going to lose a little bit, but he's also going to pick up, certainly in places like Ontario, who have been dealing with Ford for a year and a bit now, and realize what kind of behavior and attitudes seem to bloom under that Trumpian kind of politics, that sort of, I'm going to bully and I'm going to be outrageous. And from what I gather, a lot of people in Ontario are just really not impressed, not happy, and are doing a fair bit to actually hold him to account. So certainly you've got a bunch of people in Ontario who literally voted Conservative or may have voted Conservative in their last provincial election, who are very, very unlikely to vote Conservative going forward. Yeah. So, what we have here is, it looks like he's got an abundance of money. So interpret that as support coming to him. And he has an abundance of good feelings being sent to him, and people being supportive of what he has done in the last 4 years and what, the projections are for the next 4. It's interesting because it is possible that that whole Trans-Canada situation for, to exporting our oil out to the coast more easily may actually end up turning significantly in his favor. And that may actually go ahead and create, the jobs, etc., that it does. And there are going to be environmental concerns, but I think on some level they're actually going to be addressed. So that's kind of where I am right now. I think that by and large, this situation has been unfortunate. It has been hurtful. It has certainly not put him in a great light. I feel right now, energetically at least, that it appears that he is going to be able to weather the storm. We have a lot more that's going to happen as we head week by week to October 21st. There's just going to be a lot of it. So I will continue to do these weekly readings. If there's something specific you would like me to read on pertaining to the Canadian elections, please message me or put a comment down, because I do go through all of my comments, and so I will catch it and make note of it. So I think that's it for now. I will see you next week with another Canadian political reading. And until next time, take care, be well. I'll see you real soon now. Bye.